When I came around the corner to Jaden's classroom, Jaden was sitting in the hallway, curled up in a ball. And as soon as he saw me, he jumped up and said, "Run, Mom, run faster."
Joining us, as always, is our news director, Miss Annie DeRiso, also Marty Oakley, who's serving as a special analyst on the Stacy Lynne case, who we're interviewing right now about the events that took place in Fort Collins, Colorado, which resulted in the theft of her child in response and retaliation to her political advocacy against Agenda 21 policies. So let's go to the Fort Collins, Colorado area and welcome our special guest for this first segment, Stacy Lynne. Hi, Stacy. How are you?
Hi, Dave. I'm fine, thank you.
Well, you have been through quite an ordeal, and first let me just say that as one parent to another, my heart sincerely goes out to you for the theft of your child, Jaden. How did this whole ordeal start? You were concerned about some things in your community, so let's start off the conversation there.
Sure. About 4 years ago, I noticed the city of Fort Collins was trying to push out some small, locally owned businesses. I started to do a little research, and when I was asking city officials their reasons for pushing out these businesses, they were giving very strange answers. For example, they wanted to put these businesses out because they wanted all the trash containers to be the same color. So I dug a little deeper and discovered it was all part of an agenda. I wanted the people to understand that we were going to lose hundreds of local jobs and all of the benefits that those local companies brought to our community. We were successful in saving those businesses and keeping those business owners able to supply jobs to hundreds of employees. That actually led me to traveling around the Front Range and giving presentations on ICLEI, which is the local Agenda 21. And just last year, we were able to save approximately 10 more small businesses in a suburb in Denver.
Yeah, and just to kind of, in case we have the novice listener out there who knows nothing about Agenda 21, you were basically not only trying to save jobs, but preserve, middle-class way of life, private enterprise, the right to do what you will with your own private property, and that's precisely what Agenda 21 takes away, isn't it?
It is, and one of the most effective ways they do that in communities across the United States is through climate action plans. And once the community adopts a climate action plan, then city officials or city employees and county employees have more authority than elected officials. So many times the elected officials in your community don't even know what's happening until after city employees have implemented major changes. And I found that throughout the United States.
Mr. Lamb, there's no such thing as a global agenda. Hey, friend, you're absolutely wrong. Here it is. It's called Agenda 21. Agenda 21. The primary document presented in Rio de Janeiro and adopted by more than 100 heads of state, including George Bush, which lays out in intricate detail all of the transformation that must take place in society in order for it to become sustainable as they define sustainability. At that first meeting, the United Nations Environment Program presented them with a global biodiversity assessment orchestrated and coordinated by the World Resources Institute and the World Wildlife Fund and the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. Not under authority of any treaty, but by voluntary agreement with the United Nations. Human population is to be resettled into the remaining 25% of the land. He called 20 federal departments together and said, you will create an ecosystem management policy, and you will implement the ecosystem management policy throughout the federal government. Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, Department of Commerce, Department of Education, throughout the federal government. They developed what they called multimedia enforcement. Where they run into a problem with a community that will not accept this ecosystem management concept, multimedia enforcement means that all 20 federal agencies descend on the community and begin inspections and writing tickets. I couldn't believe it.
The document calls for literally reducing the human population by as much as 2/3 to 3/4 in the next 30 to 50 years. It could set aside up to 1/2 of the American landscape into wilderness areas interconnected by wilderness corridors, all surrounded by human buffer zones in which human activities are highly regulated. That is very, very clear in these United Nations documents that they want to set up a regulatory structure that would affect every man, woman, and child on planet Earth, and all of the control would be headquartered in the United Nations.
Today is Wednesday, December 21st, 2011. I am standing in front of the Larimer County Justice Center in Fort Collins, Colorado. I am Stacy Lynne. My son is Jaden. I'm here today to officially state and give public notice that I will be commencing lawsuits against the people in the following list for the crimes they have committed against Jaden and me. These crimes include, and are not limited to, child abuse, reckless endangerment, malfeasance, misfeasance, treason, extortion, violations of state statutes, violations of the Colorado Constitution, violations of the United States Constitution, violations of the Colorado Rules of Civil Procedure, violations of the Colorado Rules of Evidence, violations of civil rights, violations of natural law, and violations of oaths of office. The perpetrator is to pick my child up from school, which he attempted to do yesterday, which was Tuesday, December 20th. I learned that he was in the building. I ran to find my son, and I found him curled up in a ball with the perpetrator standing next to him or sitting next to him. And as soon as my son saw me, he said, "Run, Mommy, run." And we ran as fast as we could, and we got away from him. And so I'm reading these permanent orders, and the judge has found it necessary to give this man, who has threatened to kill us both, full custody of my child and giving me supervised visitation. I'm not accused of anything. I have done nothing to violate any laws in this city, in this state, and in this country. As difficult as it is at this point for me to ask for this, I do need help financially. The judge has also ordered me to pay nearly $14,000 of the perpetrator's attorney fees, and I have to do that within 45 days. But the deficiencies that they're claiming, again, these are completely false, is that I have declared myself a sovereign citizen. I have not declared myself a sovereign citizen, but the reason they're doing that is to portray me as a terrorist. The other thing that they are claiming is that I'm a constitutionalist. And being a constitutionalist in Larimer County is equivalent to being a terrorist. In pretrial hearing and during the trial on November 15, 2011, stated that the law was not allowed to be spoken of. It wasn't mentioned. It was not allowed to be mentioned. I was not to reference any constitutional cases. I was not to reference any constitutional laws. There were no negative statements about me as a parent, and they have decided to take this child from me. There's nothing in writing. There's nothing in writing demanding that I produce this child to the sheriff's office.
Stacy, you're under arrest. I have a warrant for your arrest. You're under arrest. You're under arrest. Put the phone down now.
For what?
I have a warrant for your arrest. Put the phone down now.
May we see the warrant, please?
At the jail, you can.
I think you're supposed to serve it before we come.
Now.
I will.
Stand up. Put your hands behind your back.
Injunction is filed.
Can I turn this off, please?
Yes, you certainly can.
I have a question. Why are you doing this?
Because you're under arrest.
For what? Can you please tell me?
You're under arrest for violation of the court order.
What court order?
The court order giving...
What would you like to do with these items right here?
These
Criminal
belong
court.
to-
Okay.
Okay, so I assume a warrant is not going to be produced here?
Yes, no warrant?
No, you'll see the warrant as soon as we go over to the jail.
Don't you know
I have
I have to do that
I have no
first?
reason to prevent these.
Now you have to provide it to her.
Yes, let's go.
You should have provided here.
Ahead of time.
You're on actually private property.
Stay right there.
I'm going to make sure that she is being handled properly.
You can walk over the curb over there if you want to.
I'm actually on public property right here.
Sir, I'm just telling you, you can step over
I
there.
understand. I know my rights.
You'll go to jail if you don't comply with what I'm asking.
And I'm not doing anything to not comply.
What is going through these people's mind? This is a child. It'd be one thing, Stacy, if they messed with you. You know what I'm saying? If they harassed you, intimidated you. But to do this to a child?
Yes, I want people to understand how they wrote the order. The way they wrote the order was they stripped Jaden of his family, his friends, his pets, his life, his house. He didn't even get to take any of his own clothing or his own, special toys. He didn't get to say goodbye to anybody. And my family and all of his friends for his lifetime have been banned from him. He has been stripped of everything from his really happy and safe and thriving life.
I'm almost speechless. See, this is the response I get a lot, and Marty, I'm sure you do too, that people will tell me when I tell them about some of these programs that, the government could never get away with that. They don't do that. And oftentimes it's not the government per se, the elected officials. It's the bureaucratic heads of these agencies that implement bureaucratic fiat law and totally ignore the legal process. Is that what you're finding in your community? And Marty, I'm sure you found that as well.
Yes.
The biological father of Jaden, not involved in his life, filed an action to do what? Help me understand this.
He filed an action to gain custody and...
Okay.
Stacy, can I ask you a question, please?
Yes.
You said he was not involved in this child's life, never had been. What spurred him? Who spurred him to file this action against you for custody?
I'm not sure about that, actually. He had been gone for 14 solid months prior to that and had said that he was, basically leaving, and there was no return date.
And how did this happen in conjunction with what you were doing? Had you hit a pivotal point in this? Had you been contacted by anyone else
no.
regarding this, maybe telling you to stop or threatening you in any way?
Well, what had just happened, and I don't know if this is directly tied, but we had just had a major victory in Jefferson County, Colorado, by saving 10 small businesses. And so this happened shortly after that. I thought there at the time that this might be connected.
What I'm wondering is, see, I don't believe in coincidences, for one thing. Did you know where he was at when he resurfaced, where he had been?
But I truly do not know any specifics about his life.
Yeah. See, so what that tells me is if you didn't know where he was and can't even now say with any definition where he was, somebody hunted him down.
It seems likely that this disinterested father, totally uninvolved in Jaden's life, would just suddenly appear out of nowhere to gain 100% custody of his son. A little bit too coincidental for me.
And I would be looking for an increase in living standards. Is he living beyond his means? Does he suddenly have means that he didn't have before?
Well, I can comment on that because in public documents and in court, open court, he was explaining that he was driving his parents' car and living in his parents' home, and just recently he has a brand new pickup and is living in a very expensive house.
My goodness, I wonder how that happened.
Yeah, and just let's be really blunt, Stacy, and I'll take you off the hook because I know you have a lot of legal issues and legal actions that are pending. But Annie and I and our researcher Diana Hunter are all convinced that Mr. Pappenheimer is receiving some kind of funding, remuneration, although we can't prove it specifically, but I'm sure a forensic investigation of his bank account and property holdings would likely reveal Agenda 21 interests funding him, harassing you to pull you off the trail that you were in. Stacy didn't just make an enemy of Pat Stryker. Pat Stryker had a friend in the governor's office, Governor Bill Ritter at the time, who left office last January when he was termed out. And Bill Ritter appointed Julie Field as an interim judge for a vacant appointment. And interestingly enough, today, Bill Ritter works for Pat Stryker, making $300,000 a year. And we have also traced Pat Stryker's interest with Julie Field back to a law firm that Field worked with back in Michigan over a decade ago. Her law firm represented the business interests of Pat Stryker. And on Judge Julie Field's judicial application for the position that she assumed, and when she took control of Jayden, she had put on that application as her address as being 123 College Avenue, Suite 200, which is also the home of one of Pat Stryker's companies. They shared the same suite. Therefore, it's quite clear, and there's many other political conflicts of interest here involving the good judge, in quotes, but it's quite clear that Stryker used her undue influence in the governor's office, got a hit person in the form of Julie Field to come in, snatch Jayden from his rightful mother, rightful parent, the only parent this kid's ever known, and put him in the hands of someone who I've heard on tape make outrageous and dangerous threats for which I think he should be in jail for. This is the corrupt system that infests Larimer County. And you people who live in Fort Collins ought to be ashamed of yourselves if you let it continue. Stacy, where is the case presently at? I know you've got some legal actions that are pending.
Yes, we filed a Rule 59, which addresses the irregularities in the hearing, and then we have a Rule 62, which is a motion for stay, so that we can get Jayden back home while the legal irregularities are sorted out. We're asking for him to come home because he has suffered some serious trauma. This little boy was, please bear with me.
Okay.
Was thriving.
Yeah,
he was bright, intelligent. He has light in his eyes, and now he has told his friends he can no longer be their friends. He's not engaged in activities at school. He will not take off his winter coat anymore. He is suffering. So we're trying to get him home while they sort this out.
This has been a pretty shaken up hour, or a pretty shaken up group, to think that government could become this criminal, this inhumane. This is what we read about in the history textbooks about places like Nazi Germany. It's not supposed to be in Fort Collins, Colorado. We're going to pray for you, but mostly I know you need help right now. You've got mounting legal bills, and I believe you have a legal defense fund, am I correct?
Yes, a group in Colorado has set up a way to donate.
Okay, Stacy, thanks for joining us. And please know that we're with you in thought and prayer. And we're not going to let go of this story until we see justice. And Julie Field and Pat Stryker are going to become very familiar with us, as are those Larimer County officials. Anyway, take care and God bless, and we'll be in touch.
Thank you.
So you can keep us updated, okay?